Whether you have a diagnosis or not, I don't care. I'll teach you how to find what's causing your health concerns using the labs you already have. Your doctor might tell you your blood work is normal, but I'm here to teach you a better way. If you're a doctor or a health coach and anything in between, there's one for you too. Download your cheat guides and register here at drkylieburton.com. This podcast is sponsored by Systemic Formulas and Nutribiome. Systemic Formulas, the supplement company I trust with my patients and family. Instead of ordering from a handful of companies, I use 95% SF products. They're top-of-the-line quality with the best lab west of the Mississippi. They're pure, potent, and they get results. In fact, I recommend you follow their Instagram at Systemic Formulas Institute. Also, the man who's behind the Systemic Formulas products, Dr. Shane Morris, is launching a new line of supplements designed to take your microbiome to the next level. He has specific prebiotics designed to feed the probiotics. Learn more and order soon at mybiome.com. All right, let's jump into the episode. Welcome to the Beyond the Diagnosis podcast with me, Dr. Kylie. We're going to go over this whole concept of stop chasing symptoms. Because when you chase symptoms, you might be like this patient who ended up in the emergency room over a holiday weekend, and you left 6, 7, 8 hours later with no answers. In fact, they sent you out the door with just that. Guesses, no answers, possibilities. Luckily for her, she knew who to turn to. She sent her labs to me, and I was able to say, look, here's why you ended up in the emergency room. This is why they don't know what to do with you, because they're not trained correctly. Again, this is not your doctor's problem. It's not their fault. It is a failure of the system that they were trained in. You got to break out of the system to have better results as practitioners and as patients. So no matter your background, listening to this, tune in because we need to stop chasing symptoms. Now, a little bit of backstory on her. She is young. She's had a lot of digestive complaints, though, the last 6, 7, 8 months of life. Chronic constipation is the name of her game. And she's always had like pain when she's eating and bloating. And I know so many people have these issues and they're just trying to turn to simple digestive supplements. Is that really the answer? In fact, after I went over what I'm about to show you guys, she pulled out her supplement cupboard, and like most, just ate some nuts. Sorry. Like most, she has a lot of enzymes and probiotics and other upper GI support things inside her digestive support system in the supplement cupboard. I don't have no idea what the brand is. It doesn't matter. But are they about fixing the underlying issue, or is this more of a support concern? And we've had a couple conversations about her gut in the past, but this instance over the weekend is what turned her to say, all right, it's time. It's time to figure this out. And why now? Why did my health all of a sudden take a turn for the worst? Now, luckily for her, the cardiovascular issues that they couldn't figure out had nothing to do with COVID vaccine or the virus itself. It had something to do with a bacterial infection. And I know what you're thinking. Kylie, this is a cardiovascular concern where she's randomly passing out at home, which is why she ended up in the emergency room. She is an avid runner and an avid health enthusiast. If you were to look at her BMI, it would probably be on the low side of things. of the normal range for her age and height. She's an athlete. And as a female athlete, what I tend to find, especially in the runners, is a lack of nutrition. Not by eating unhealthy. They eat very, very healthy, but they lack calories. They lack what their body needs for fuel, to the point where at some point in their running season, they're going to end up with stress fractures. And I have seen this on more than one time. Stress fractures in their femurs, the biggest bone in the body. There's a stress fracture in it. So if you are runners, or you work with runners, or you work with athletes, be sure they are eating enough food. If you're a mama and you have athletes in the family, heck, all my brothers are track athletes. In fact, my youngest brother ended up at the Olympic trials this summer. Track is in the blood. I prefer to play a game with a ball. Volleyball was my game. I prefer not to run around in a circle and throw up at the finish line. But they all think it's fun to do that. They get paid for it though, so it's okay. Make sure they are eating enough, especially females. You can take all the supplements in the world, but if you're not eating enough, your body is still going to eat itself in the form of stress fractures in runners. So what about her? She ends up passing out a couple of times at the house, which is why ER trip. First, it was Instacare. They took her blood pressure. Her blood pressure was like nowhere to be found. It was non-existent on the low side. So the poor little girl, the little intern, runs her in a, what do they call those chairs? Just my mind went blank. In a chair to the emergency room, where they then continued care. And she kept dropping her blood pressure. In fact, her blood pressure just disappeared a couple of different times. Very white, pale faced. They take all the blood, which for her is impressive to get blood. She hates doctors. In fact, she passes out if she has to even think about going to a doctor's office. So they have blood when I get this phone call. And the phone call says, not supposed to get teary-eyed at this. This is why we do what we do. Kylie, I'm sitting here with my wife in the ER. You're the first family member I've told. And my family's pretty tight. We tell each other things. They have blood. But I don't think we're going to get any answers here. And I'm not really familiar with what you do. I just know you're really good at labs. So what labs do we need to have them run? Here's the list. A CBC with differential. Make sure it is with differential. If it is not, you are missing big key puzzle pieces. The second lab test, the complete metabolic panel, CMP. That complete metabolic panel contains things like information on adrenal fatigue and leaky gut and other things like that. Complete metabolic panel. The third lab test I always recommend is a lipid panel, cholesterol, triglycerides, HDL, LDL. Fourth, a thyroid panel. And at very minimum, your thyroid panel should include a TSH, a free T4, a free T3, TPO, and TG antibodies. Minimum of 5 markers. If you're getting a TSH, it is not enough. I'm explicitly texting this back to him, which everybody needs to know. These are the lab tests I recommend. Ask your doctor for them and be persistent. The more labs you take, the more puzzle pieces you have. If you don't get specific labs, you're missing puzzle pieces. You can't complete your puzzle without them. And these labs are paid for via insurance. They're regular blood tests. They're not $1,000 functional medicine tests, though there are those available. Get these labs. You'll be amazed at the profound answers you can find about your personal health inside them. So we have a CBC with differential, a complete metabolic panel, I say this so many times, a lipid panel, a thyroid panel, an iron panel. Now this blows my mind. I got a text back that said, they're fighting us on the last 3. This ER doctor, I'm sure they're, I don't even know if it's male or female, it doesn't matter. I'm sure they're really smart. They are, because they survived medical school. Check the freaking box. It is not that hard. Why not check it? Why leave it empty and miss out on important puzzle pieces? The 3 labs I recommended, and I always recommend, that the ER doctor was fighting them on are iron panel, blood glucose, and vitamin D. Yep. I want an iron panel, specifically in females. If you are still menstruating, you need an iron panel. If you have heavy, painful periods, you need an iron panel. Your body loses iron every single month. If you are not a meat eater, you need an iron panel. The best source of iron is from liver meats, not liver support supplements, liver meats, like eating a liver organ, and red meats. If you don't eat those 2 things, you're probably not getting enough iron. Test it. You want to know. Ladies, you want to know. Is your chronic fatigue being caused by iron deficiency? Get it. I can tell you that they weren't pushy enough because they did not receive an iron panel. They did get a blood glucose, thank heavens. I mean, she's passing out and you're not going to take a blood glucose? Whatever. Vitamin D, they didn't get that either, but thankfully we have the CMP, so we can determine the vitamin D status via the calcium status, and it's depleted, which I'm about to show you. So once again, CBC with differential, metabolic panel, thyroid panel, lipid panel, iron panel, blood glucose, and A1C. That's always a good thing too. Vitamin D. If you want to throw in HSCRP for a specific inflammatory marker, do that as well. There's the labs you know you need to take. So I get the text message back that says they're fighting us on these 3. And I literally said, be pushy. You got blood from her, which is impressive. Use that blood to get more puzzle pieces. And then I want to walk you through the next scenario. Once they had the labs, do they get access to them? Now they're new to this whole health stuff with blood work, and they just avoid. They're pretty healthy. They're both athletes, high-end level athletes at that. And I said, listen, it's her labs. She can do with her labs what she wants to do with them. So they can't tell you you don't get to print copies of her labs. They can't tell you that you can't have them sent via fax to me. I can have you fill out a form if you need to, but they have a form in their office too. We all do. So next time you draw blood and you get blood work, get it in your possession. Now, of course, they're going to have it in their system. It's by law. You have to keep records for 7 years. But they're your labs. You can get them too. We just don't think about it. We just are so accustomed to our doctors being the ones that are able to read the labs. And if we're told that they're normal, then we just accept the fate. In her case, she was told that they were normal, though there were some that were definitely off the charts, not normal. And yet nothing was said about it. Why? Why does this happen? And it happens so many times. The hardest labs I've had to read are family members, where they're like, why didn't my doctor say anything to me about that? I mean, family members, because it hits home, but it happens in everybody. They're not going to point it out because they don't know what to do about it. And if you were to get told, your liver enzymes are in the 200s, which I've seen, and again, the patient had no idea until I sat down and showed them. I wasn't the one that ordered the labs. I just got handed the labs because they wanted help. And I said, well, why are they going to point it out? Because your first question is going to be, what do we do about it? They don't know. It's our medical system that has failed us, not the doctors themselves. We're all in this because we want to help people. Just the way we go about doing it is a little bit different. And I am lucky enough to have figured out a masterfully good mechanism using the labs you already have, saving you thousands of dollars and hours upon hours and relying on Dr. Google. So be empowered. Be an advocate for your health. They are your labs. Get possession of them. Even if it's a hard copy, even if it's on a patient portal electronically, get them. You deserve to have them. And then go over to my website at drkylieburton.com and pick up your free blood work cheat guide. I'll teach you what your normal labs are really saying, whether you have a medical background or not. You don't need one. If you do have a medical background, go grab the cheat sheet that's for practitioners. If you don't, grab the cheat sheet that's for you. It's all right there on the front page, drkylieburton.com. Okay. This is the next best part. She gets released from the ER 6, 7, 8 hours later. I don't even know how long it was. And they tell me, well, they sent us home. She's stable, but they were just going to throw out an antibiotic in hopes that something would change with the white blood cell count. But they really have no idea why she's passing out and why her blood pressure keeps dropping. Meanwhile, I don't even think they asked about her digestive symptoms. I just happen to know because I've been talking to her for the last little while. So she's got some major digestive symptoms. And then people always ask me, well, why now? And her question was the same thing. Why now? Stress and stressful events. Those are usually what tip the cup over. Okay. She experienced some stressful events in the week prior. And that was finally what tipped the cup over for her. The nice thing is, she's young. And when you're young, you can heal really, really fast. So no matter what age you're listening to this, the time to get started is now. Because not only are you wasting time that you'll never get back again, but the longer you take, the longer your healing journey is going to be. So they sent me her labs and they said, we have no idea what they look like or why they are the way they are. And I saw them and I immediately thought, oh yes, these are beautiful. So let's go through this. I punched her labs into this form, in which you can see if you're watching the video. If you can't, It's okay, I'll walk you through it so you can understand what's going on. And remember, go get your blood chem cheat guide so you can see what your labs really tell you as well. Blood glucose, I want to see it between 85 and 99. Hers was at 117. Thank heavens they convinced them to take it. Her A1C is at 4.7. If you are a practitioner listening to this and you order labs, get all the puzzle pieces. There's no sense in leaving puzzle pieces out. So right off the bat, we have some blood sugar imbalances that lead to hormone chaos. As I pursued further, I learned that previously, before birth control entered her body, they were really heavy and painful and sporadic. Once birth control entered her body, they're really light. So when I think heavy and painful, I think estrogen and liver. When I think sporadic and irregular, I think blood sugar. And now that she's got birth control, I'm thinking, okay, one, either the birth control doesn't have estrogen in it, or two, I don't even know what number two is, but I'll show you what my hormone regimen was for her, is for her, I should say. Then we get down to the BUN and the creatinine, and those levels are high. If they are low, I think hydrochloric acid inside the stomach, and typically they have symptoms of heartburn, indigestion, GERD kind of this stuff. If they're high, I'm going to think kidneys and the detox system, because again, the kidneys are just one piece of a system. Fix the whole system, get all the systems in the body working together efficiently, and you never know what can happen. Jump down through here, we have another marker for kidneys in regards to the chloride. And remember how I said they refuse to take vitamin D status? We're in Utah entering the winter months where we don't make vitamin D. So we better be sure vitamin D is there before we head into the winter months. But you know, it's not important. No, has nothing to do with her cardiovascular system, even though vitamin D touches every single cell in the body. Her calcium level is at 9.1. If it's anywhere around 9.2, I know her vitamin D status is absolutely depleted. If your calcium is anywhere less than like 9.3, you better get on some vitamin D and get on good stuff. It's called DV3 and liquid vitamin D. You can get that in the supplement store at drkylieburton.com/supplements. Again, that's DV3 for capsule form, and liquid D, I think it's just vitamin D. It's a liquid version. Tastes like the orange soda pop. Kids love it. My 4-year-old and my 1-year-old get mad at me when I stop giving it to them, but you can only give them so much vitamin D, right? Get it. Total protein, albumin, and globulin, those three markers are for leaky gut. We have 2 of them included in the labs, so possible leaky gut, and an ALK phos that is depleted. Now, if you see ALK phos above 90 and they're teenagers, that's because they're growing, and it's totally okay. You're going to see that normally. However, when it's depleted, I'm going to think vitamin C and zinc. I also know that we have some digestive issues, so she's probably not absorbing minerals, but I know her diet is pretty strict, so we might not be getting minerals in sufficient amounts in the diet either. So we jump down here. We got liver markers are great. Again, these are all labs that they took at the ER when I gave them the list of things to order. TSH is at 1.48. This girl is always cold. In fact, I don't know if she's never not cold. So I wasn't surprised by her TSH. In fact, I thought it would be lower than it was. But like typical thyroid panels, it's only a TSH. So we're missing a whole bunch of puzzle pieces. That being said, the stress and the adrenals, which produce our stress hormone, are directly impacting that TSH. But more importantly, is there an internal stressor on the body that's causing that TSH to have problems? And there is. I'll show you. Like I said, the doc refused to take some vitamin D, but because of the calcium level, I'm going to guess it's in its 20s because the calcium is 9.1, less than the range, less than the ideal range. So we're going to jack it up. And we're going to jack it up fast, and we're going to keep her on it heading into these winter months and throughout the winter months. You should probably do the same. Here we go. That's the big number right there. White blood cell count. Typically, I want to see it between 5 and 8. Hers is at 23.4. Dun, dun, dun. This is why they're like, well, maybe we can give an antibiotic and we'll hope that the white blood cell count lowers. Now, if she were to go get the same exact blood test today, I would imagine that the white blood cell count is 10 or 11, just because she wasn't in that hot, stressful moment when they did these labs. We have one marker indicating her body might need some help with B vitamins and the methylation process of those. But ultimately, what in the world is causing that infection? There you go. The neutrophils are at 87%, which is why when I got the text message that with a picture of her labs, I was like a kid on Christmas morning. My assistant still makes fun of me. She's like, Merry Christmas, as she sends me over a new set of labs, because she goes through them, punches them into this form, and then gives me sometimes it's a synopsis. Sometimes it's, oh, these aren't very cool. Or sometimes it's Merry Christmas, or here's your candy. And this time it was Merry Christmas. 87% is a bacterial infection, not a bacterial infection that's going to cause a positive test. So if she were to go take a Campylobacter, C. diff, E. coli, H. pylori, any of those typical bacterial infections that we think about, had they ran them in the lab at the ER, or ordered them, I should say, I would imagine they would have still come back negative. And even then, they're not going to, because what would a bacterial infection have anything to do with her heart, her cardiovascular system? Here's the thing with infections. They impact any system in the body. It's just a matter of what system and what stressful event caused it to go overboard. So for example, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I've been fighting like this chronic fatigue. One, chronic fatigue is usually caused by a low-grade virus that's gone undetected. What virus it is, I don't know, and I don't care. And two, you're thinking, I've had 3 kids. My body's never been the same after that 3rd kid. Well, that 3rd kid might have been the tipping point where your body just said, I'm done. I've had enough. You better start getting to work and healing me, giving me what I need. Now, here's the catch with her specific labs. She had partial CBC with differential. So she had 87, 6, and 1. I know that those 5 differential markers must add up to 100%. That's just how they are. So based off of the 87%, add 6 to that, so we have 93%. Add 1 more to that, that's 94%. I have a 6% gap that I need to make up in the additional 2 markers that they didn't take. I don't know why they didn't, but they didn't. So based off of how many thousands of labs I've seen, the eosinophil marker is more commonly off than the basophil marker, but it doesn't really matter because both markers are for parasites. So deductive reasoning here, I've got neutrophils, lymphocytes, and monocytes. The lab told me what those were, but then I'm going to take that 94% that they all added up, and I'm going to subtract it from 100% and come up with my next 6% for the next 2 markers. So we definitely have a bacterial infection, which I'm not surprised by because of her gut concerns, chronic constipation being the number one of them, and then possible parasites. And I do know she's traveled outside of the country numerous times, but doesn't matter. You don't have to. So we are going to get her supplement regimen done and done quickly. Based off of her labs, based off of how she feels, I came up with this plan. And this is not a typical plan. The first month, we're going to support, replenish, and refuel. Why? Because I know her body is depleted in a lot of areas. She's a runner and she runs her guts out and eats very little. So we need to give her body the tools it needs to do the work that's going to happen in the second and the third month. Once we get the gut destruction part right, where we're tackling some parasitic problems and some bacterial infections for sure, we get into month 4, which is gut replenish, getting all the good stuff back in, and month 5 and 6, going in and balancing out those hormones. She is young, so I'm going to take a lot and condense it into 6 months and pack in a punch in each month. So it looks like this. Now I put vitamin D liquid because DV3 capsules are still on back order from the time when I ordered it. So feel free to add in the capsules instead, but we're doing liquid. So I'm going to do a high dose of that. We're going to add in some Moors just because I know she's depleted across the border. So we're going to do Moors, CVO, Min, and GA. And then I'm going to add in some iron because I know her intake of meats is basically non-existent. Sometimes she eats chicken and sometimes that's about it. So I'm going to add in a Hemivite, which is my source of iron. Standard Process also has one called Ferrofood, which is popular, but we're looking at Moors, CVO, Min, GA for her big time support agents, especially with the minerals, and then Super Oxycell because I know she's got thyroid concerns and has all the thyroid symptoms. So we're going to take that and apply it topically over her thyroid to start protecting that immediately. Then we get down here into month 2, and typically this is a 2-month protocol, but I just have to go with my gut in this. And I'm going to go 2 rounds of it instead of the full 4 rounds. So this is what it looks like in addition to providing the support as we tackle that. And this is where we're going to start tackling the gut stuff. Now, I love VRMs because they are multifaceted. When you combine all 4 VRMs together, you're tackling parasitic, fungal, and bacterial. And I know she has a history of recurring UTIs. For some odd reason, the VRM protocol, even if you just do it for a month in 2 rounds, I have had more success with combating chronic recurring UTIs with that than with anything else. So VRMs are pretty cool. They're multifaceted, which is one of the reasons why I love them. We got to add bind. If you're destroying at anything, you better go in and clean up the mess because it's going to make a mess. Release toxins and all sorts of stuff we don't even know. So use bind to go in and grab those toxins and eliminate them. Continue with the vitamin D, the Hemivite, and the Super Oxycell. That's month 2. Now we're going to transition into month 3, which is where we're going to come in at a different angle with her gut symptoms and do some backtracks, FungDX, continue with the bind, and then support the kidney and liver, make sure the detox system is working well. Now, throughout this process, this month 2 and 3, I want to see her digestive symptoms go away. I want to see daily regular bowel movements to the point where if I transition to month 4 and her digestive complaints start to return, I'm going to eliminate the probiotic. And the more I do this, the more I start with ABC versus MBC. MBC is high-powered dose. And the worse the bacterial infection is, so like the higher the neutrophil count is, the more I can anticipate they're not going to do well with probiotics. If it's like 66%, 68%, then we could probably try a probiotic. And you can also ask them in the past, or you yourself, if you're listening, you're like, I don't do well on probiotics, but I've been told over and over again on every Instagram channel that they say probiotics are good for the health, good for the gut. Well, they might be good for some people's gut, but that doesn't mean they're good for yours. And then with probiotics, are you feeding them? Are you giving them the food that they need? Called prebiotics. So ABC is what I wanted to start off with her. And I don't even anticipate giving her MBC just because that bacterial count is really up there. My favorite leaky gut protocol is Vista 1, Vista 2, and L-Gut. Then throw in some digestive enzymes with some hydrochloric acid support to make sure her stomach is breaking down the food, which is one of her biggest complaints. She doesn't feel like her food is getting absorbed, and it's painful when she eats. Right after she eats, continue with the vitamin D. Month 5, we're transitioning over to hormones. So we got GA for adrenals, Femicrin to just help all female hormones get made in good amounts, Calm taken at night before bed to replenish the GABA in the brain so you can fall asleep, stay asleep, and end anxiety. Add in some minerals. I always include minerals in any type of hormone balancing, as well as sinulin. You must balance out the blood sugar while you're trying to hormone stabilize everything. Sinulin is like the best version of metformin, only natural without any side effects. And then energy, just to support the mitochondria. Mitochondria, in case you're wondering, are in every single cell in the body. They help you convert food into energy. Then the final month will just be a smaller version of the more intensive month 5 for hormones, but we're going to complete the thyroid cascade. And if you're wondering about thyroid concerns, check out the 90-day thyroid reset kit inside the store, or you can even start with GA, GB, and GF. That will hit all 3 steps of the thyroid cascade. So there you have it. There's her story in a nutshell. And of course, this was recent, so she hasn't even gotten her supplements yet. But I loved the example of her labs and the example of her story, because I know so many people are like her. They find themselves in the ER. They find themselves in the next specialist doctor's office. They find themselves searching for hours and hours on end on Dr. Google, and yet they're coming up without much. You will learn more in a free blood chem cheat guide. Go download it at drkylieburton.com and figure out what your normal labs are really telling you. Whether you have a diagnosis or not, I don't care. I'll teach you how to find what's causing your health concerns using the labs you already have. Your doctor might tell you your blood work is normal, but I'm here to teach you a better way. If you're a doctor or a health coach and anything in between, there's one for you too. Download your cheat guides and register here at drkylieburton.com. This podcast is sponsored by Systemic Formulas and Nutribiome. Systemic Formulas, the supplement company I trust with my patients and family. Instead of ordering from a handful of companies, I use 95% SF products. They're top of the line quality with the best lab west of the Mississippi. They're pure, potent, and they get results. In fact, I recommend you follow their Instagram at Systemic Formulas Institute. Also, the man who's behind the Systemic Formulas products, Dr. Shane Morris, is launching a new line of supplements designed to take your microbiome to the next level. He has specific prebiotics designed to feed the probiotics. Learn more and order soon at mybiome.com. mybyome.com.